Hello, everyone. Good evening, Prof. De Leon.
Good evening, Sheila. Nice to be here again.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you back, Prof.
Thank you.
Today on this Wellness Wednesday, we're going to talk about how language shapes the way you think. One of your specializations, of course. And here, you pose the centrality of language in shaping the way
Hello,
you
everyone.
think. Good evening, Prof. De Leon.
Good evening.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you back, Prof. My feedback. Today on this Wellness Wednesday, we're going to talk about how language shapes the way you think. One of your specializations, of course. And here, you pose the centrality of language in shaping the way
Hello,
you think.
everyone. Good evening, Prof. De Leon.
Nag-echo, Prof. Teka lang po.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you. Today on this Wellness Wednesday, we're going to talk about how language shapes the way you think. One of your specializations, of course. And here,
Yes, it's okay.
Ayan, much better, Prof.
Okay.
Lang po, let me go to that screen. Yun lang yung challenge ng online, Prof. No?
Yes, I know that there's something that echoed what you were saying.
I will never get the hang of it. Pero interesting, very interesting po ang ating
yes,
topic
exactly.
ngayon. And it's definitely essential given the role that communication plays in our life these days. So, Prof. De Leon, I'm very curious to know what is the link between linguistic diversity, biological diversity, if we can get to that, and then primarily the value of communication and how it influences the way we condition ourselves, the way we manage our lives, and the way we think overall.
Yes, exactly. Because language is not simply information. Actually, it is a way of looking at the world. Because every language directs our attention to certain things. For example, English has very few words for consciousness, but Sanskrit contains at least 30 words for consciousness. So with that number of words, we become more aware of what consciousness is all about. While when we use English, of course, English has had other specializations that it can direct us to certain things, certain realities that Sanskrit cannot do. Well, that's also true for any language. In fact, researchers show that multilingual persons, the moment they shift from one language to another, their personality changes, their attitudes, their values, their behavior, even their body language change the moment they switch from one language to another. And therefore, language is really a way of directing attention, a way of using your mind, a way of looking at the world in a particular way. This is very important to realize because most people think that languages are interchangeable. They are not. They are not. Every language is a kind of mind. You change your language and you have another kind of mind. So I think I would follow the advice of the great philosopher, German philosopher, Johann Wolfgang Goethe, who said that in order to understand the human mind, you have to learn how to speak at least 4 very different languages. Because the whole range of the human mind is, well, so vast, no? Almost infinite. The range of the different ways of thinking, kinds of expressions for the way we are, our inner life, the external world will be seen differently by different people, and they develop different languages to see these different realities. That's why, in order to understand the human mind, you have to know at least four very different languages. It's not enough for a Filipino, for example, to learn Tagalog, Ilocano, Visayan, and Kapampangan. No, because more or less these Philippine languages belong to the same family. So learning another Filipino language is not really learning another mind, because somehow our languages contain more or less the same kind of mind, no?
Oh, that's
So
what I was going to ask, Prof. Sorry to interrupt, kasi like if you speak Ilocano and you're the next province speaks another dialect, you don't necessarily have an easy time learning that dialect. So
you don't necessarily adopt another mind, because the kind of mind that you have as a Kapampangan, Cebuano, Tagalog are very similar.
okay,
These are very similar ways of thinking. So when
yeah, despite the complexity of our dialects and our inability to learn them smoothly, same family pala tong mga to.
same family, actually the difficulty, the reason why it's very hard for a non-Tagalog to learn Tagalog is that we teach grammar using grammatical rules of English. We begin with subject, predicate. Uh, the moment we follow the rules of English grammar or syntax, then it will be very hard for a non-Tagalog to learn Tagalog, because you are confusing the learner. We have to have another set of grammatical rules, syntax, principles for our own languages, because our languages begin with the predicate. No? And yeah, look at that. No, just look at the way we begin with the predicate, and that alone influences the way we think. For example, when you say, "Ako ang gumawa nito," that's the English way of thinking. I did it. I did it. You begin with I. So you begin with the agent of action, giving so much importance to I, giving so much importance to the individual agent. While when you say, ginawa ko ito, you begin with did. It, I. Did it, I. Ginawa ko ito. When you say ginawa ko ito, you give more importance to the action than to the agent of action. So if you really analyze, because when you say, ako ay pupunta sa palengke, imagine, you don't give importance to the market. You don't give importance to the action. You give importance to yourself. Well, when you say, pupunta ako sa palengke, to the market, I am going, then you give more importance to the action and to the object of action rather than yourself. So if you look at, well, I am not saying that this is without exception, but you can say that Filipinos tend to be more humble.
Why is that true?
Tend to be more humble because they speak Filipino or Kapampangan or Visaya, where you begin with the action, the verb, the predicate, rather than the agent of action. That's why if you look at Filipinos born in the US, well, they tend to be a little more self-centered. Well, of course, that's also good to be asserting yourself, but they're rather more individually assertive, no, in the US rather than here. And these are just different cultures, but the language means a lot, no, when it comes to determining what your character is. Look at English; it cannot do without an agent of action. In Filipino or in any Philippine languages, when it is raining, you can just say umuulan. But English has to have an agent of action. But look, raining is a very complex phenomenon. The causes of raining are multiple. That phenomenon is an example of multiple causation. What causes rain? Is it the going up of water vapor to form the clouds? Is it the heaviness of the clouds? Is it the heat of the sun? And this is an example of multiple causation. You cannot just assign one agent to say that it causes the rain. But English cannot do without an agent of action. So there's a fiction. It invents a fiction. It is raining, as if the it is the cause of raining. It is necessary for English, but Navajo Indian language does not need an it, does not need an agent of action. It simply says raining, just like in our language, umuulan. You don't need an agent of action because it's a complex phenomenon. So you just focus on the action itself because you cannot just say, oh, this is the cause of raining or it is the cause, something like that. So you can see how different it is. We don't need that it. It's a fiction anyway, but English needs it because you can't construct an English word without that agent. You can't construct an English sentence without that agent of action. It's very difficult. If you'd like to do that, that will be very difficult. So language, learning a new language is never easy. It requires you to pay attention to a new set of distinctions, a new aspect, a different aspect of reality. So it's not enough to learn a new vocabulary. You have to use the vocabulary in the right way. For example, there's a Tayore Aboriginal group in Australia where their language requires you to identify your place where you are in terms of the cardinal directions of north, east, south, west. So when you say, there's an ant near my foot, no, you cannot just say that. There's an ant on the northeastern part of my foot. You cannot say, look at the table. My table is in the southwest part of my house. This is the kind of language that one of the Aboriginal groups in Australia developed. Whenever you speak about where you are or a place or your direction, you have to mention exactly where along the cardinal points you are. You can't even say hello. Good morning. If you cannot say where you are, good morning from my place here in my house is in the north, northeast, west, something like that. That's the way they talk. You can't even say past hello if you cannot place exactly place where you are. No. But what is the advantage of this kind of language? They are very good in navigating spaces. They don't get lost easily. Whereas many people who are not very careful about the cardinal points where they are can easily get lost because they are not aware of where they are. But these people, among the Aboriginals of Australia, are very good navigators. And this is one reason I think why even our ancestors, the Austronesian ancestors, were able to navigate from the Philippines to Oceania, to Hawaii, Easter Island, and other places in the Pacific without getting lost. I suppose they were really very good in orienting themselves by looking at the stars and other heavenly bodies, or maybe they also had a set of distinctions telling them where they are, but this comes from their language. This is how important language is in really trying to hold your mind, put your mind to a certain set of distinctions or aspect of reality. But there are other things that we have to look at when considering language. The very simple way of distancing, for example. Note, when you are angry at somebody, you tend to call this person saying the whole name. Let's say you're a parent, especially, and you're so angry with your son. Francisco Vergara, halika rito, come here. But when you are, when you are trying to show affection, Francisco, or when you are, it's a term of endearment. As term of endearments are the shortest one. Let's say you call your friend Hipólito. That means you're not very good friends. So the closer you are, the shorter the word will be. Later it can become.
It also makes the other person respond differently, right?
Yes. Later it will become Paul or Hip or something like that. the shorter the term, the shorter the way you call one another, the closer you are to the person. Distancing makes the word longer, longer and longer. So you can look at the animals that are domesticated. In English, the most domesticated animals have the shortest names: pig, dog, cat. But those which are quite wild, and not very close to human settlements or human life, no? Rhinoceros, hippopotamus. The elephant is quite closer because we see elephants. But look at those very long names. That means they are wild in the wild, no? Horse is quite short because we have horses every day. This is also true in the Philippines. Look at the animals close to us. Closest to us are aso, baboy, pusa, compared to many other animals that are around us. And the tuko is very close to us. That's why, because in the provinces you always hear tuko. But salagubang, not so close. Salagubang, alitap-tap, you rarely release alitap-tap nowadays. Well, this is one way of looking at language. And here, I was talking about the Tayore. In speaking the language, you will have the skill of knowing where you are at all times. You stay oriented at all times. You can even speak properly if you cannot tell where you are, no? So, for example, is there's an ant on your southeast leg, or move the cup to the northwest a little bit. These are examples of how the Tayore speak their language. And very interesting. The people of Africa, no? The San people, no? They're called by different names. The San, S-A-N people of Africa. Even use Creeks, Creek language. They speak in Creeks. I don't know how they understand one another, but they're highly developed in speaking. Yes, Creek languages. So really, if you look at many languages, you'll be amazed at the variety of these languages. And when it comes to, well, I'll talk about Philippine languages later, and you will really realize that how our languages are so rich in distinctions that are not present in many other languages. So here, another example is that English speakers look at time or think of time as in a horizontal way. For example, the future is ahead of us. Well, the past is behind, or the best is ahead of us, the worst is behind us. While in Mandarin, next month is considered a down month. The last month is up month. Imagine, what did you do last month? Instead of saying, what did you do last month? What did you do up month? Or what will you do next? Instead of saying, what will you do next month? What will you do down month? Wow, it's a different kind of thinking. This is in Mandarin.
How does it directly affect the thinking of Mandarin speakers, Prof, as they use the vertical metaphor for time? Tapos yung
I suppose
spatial metaphor.
there's very, very well very likely explanation is the very hierarchical nature of Chinese society. They have been headed by an emperor for a long, long time. It was only in the only in first decade of the 20th century that there ceased to be an emperor in China. But even now, the head of the Communist Party acts like an emperor. So there has been a very, very strong hierarchical tendency in Chinese society. In fact, one Filipino Chinese friend of mine, whose father is pure Chinese, told me that the closest he got to his father was a handshake. The father was considered the authority in the family, so distant from the children. So this person, who was a very high official of UP at one time, told me that the closest he got to his father was a handshake. Just to show you how hierarchic the traditional Chinese are, even within the family. So I suppose their idea of time, no, was influenced by this hierarchic tendency, up and down, rather than the horizontal, the more democratic British society where relationships among people are more horizontal or lateral than hierarchic. I don't know. This could be the reason. Because if you look at ancient Chinese calligraphy, the symbol, the ideograph for circle was really a circular shape. As time went by, as time passed, the ideogram, the symbol for circle became more and more squarish. And now, if you look at the symbol for circle in Chinese, in Mandarin, no, it's a complete square. Why? What does a square mean? Square in mythology means a very stable society. It's a very ordered society. It's a society ruled in a very formal way, very formal way. So if you find a square in mythology, it's a universal symbol for authority, something that, is so formal that you cannot just disobey the authorities without being punished or even beheaded. No, I think this is the reason why we connect the square with something. Oh, you're so so dry, or so what? How do we call a person who is so who lacks a sense of humor? Oh, you people who lack a sense of humor, who are so straight. No, we usually associate these people with the square, so boring, so predictable. So this is very pertinent to what we are talking about. And note, all over the world, if you find rectangular and squarish shapes of buildings, you will see that this comes from patriarchy, where where males are rulers, These are more masculine societies, characterized by patriarchy, or even what you call male chauvinism. And these are found in societies where the buildings are so rectangular or squarish. I don't want to mention stores, but one store that is Chinese here, if you look at the buildings of these malls, the malls of this owner, Chinese, are so squarish. I don't have to tell you the name, but you look at the malls of these Chinese-owned malls. You look at this structure of these Chinese-owned malls, they're so squarish compared to other designs of malls in the Philippines. Now, in contrast, rounded handwriting, rounded buildings are associated with matriarchy. If you look at the Mediterranean cultures, which are more feminine compared to Germanic cultures, you will find that there are temples that are dome-shaped, no? Rounded. Roundedness is a symbol of the feminine, symbol of gentleness, cooperation. That's why even King Arthur, when King Arthur talked about meeting with his knights to have some kind of consensus, they met on a round table rather than a square table. Round table means equality, cooperation. But square table, or especially rectangular table, means hierarchy. because what the head of the family sits on one end and the other sits on the other end. It shows distance, something impersonal. So this is very related to language. And if you look at gender especially, uh, if, if, the, if the society, if the culture is patriarchal, you will note that those words pertaining to feminine are assigned to things that are passive. Patriarchal society relegates the passive to the feminine. For example, in Spanish, the table is passive. It's just lying down there, no? So table in Spanish is la mesa. But water, even if water is soft, but water is active, is el agua. Most people think that anything ending in A in Spanish is feminine. No, agua ends in A, but it's el agua. The sun is active. The sun is active because it produces its own light. So it's el sol. But the moon is only has ambient light, reflected light, so it doesn't have light of its own. So it's called la luna. You cannot speak Spanish without knowing the gender of many objects. You have to know whether it's a feminine or a masculine, no, object in Spanish. But we are so lucky. In Filipino, in Philippine languages, we are gender neutral. Instead of saying he or she, we just say siya, which can refer to both man and woman, because originally our society, and until now, still is very, very high on gender equality. Of course, there are inequalities that exist in many, many parts of the Philippines. But on the whole, we are more gender equal than all the other Asian countries. We are the only Asian country in the top 10 of gender equality since 2006, when gender equality began to be plotted by the World Economic Forum starting in 2006. We have always been in the top 10 and the only Asian country in the top 10 of gender equality in the whole world. And it is reflected in our language. So look at the grammar of Spanish, Romance languages compared to Russian and other. Look at here, susi, no, ki. Ki is masculine in German and feminine in Spanish. So German speakers will refer to ki as hard, heavy, jagged, metal, serrated, and useful. Whereas when speaking of the same thing, susi or ki, Spanish speakers will likely say, oh, golden, intricate, little, lovely, shiny, and tiny. How about us? How do we refer to susi? To Filipinos, is susi feminine or masculine?
Oh,
You
wow.
can think about that. Susi ng kaliwanagan. Is it masculine or feminine in the Philippines? Or do we assign any gender at all to susi?
Wala, ang hirap, neutral.
We may not, because we are gender neutral most of the time. Or tulay, bridge is feminine in German, while it's masculine in Spanish. So German speakers will refer to bridge as beautiful, elegant, fragile, peaceful, pretty, and slender. While Spanish speakers will say that, well, bridge is big, dangerous, long, strong, sturdy, and towering. You can see the grammar, no, determines how they will consider objects, whether they are feminine or masculine. I don't know about tulay in Filipino. Ang tulay ba ay babae ba o lalaki ang tulay sa atin?
Ang hirap i-associate sa kung masculine o feminine pag samang tulay, no?
Yes. Parang we don't think of feminizing or masculinizing objects. I don't think we do that. Although, well, it depends on about ilog. Ilog now, well, we have all kinds of expressions for river. whether it's a raging river or calm river, depende siguro sa klase ng ilog. Pwedeng maging babae, pwedeng maging lalaki. Mutya ng Pasig o Pasig. Do we associate the Pasig with Mutya or Shokoy? Sirena or Shokoy? Look, uh, even concepts like death, sin, victory, uh, these are given genders. Ang kamatayan ba ay lalaki o babae? Si kamatayan. Kasalanan. Tagumpay. You know, in Western culture, which is really sexist, Western culture is quite sexist because they have to put gender on all these things, even abstract ideas have to be either feminine or masculine. Look at, if you look at the examples given here, in the next slide, nakikita nyo yung in many languages, 85% of personifications, either male or female, can be predicted by the gender given in the grammar. No? If the grammar is feminine, no, the personification will be feminine. The grammar is masculine, well, the personification will be masculine 85% of the time. That's why German painters are more likely to paint death as a male, no? While Russian painters are more likely to paint death as a woman. Si kamatayan, in Filipino culture, kamatayan ba is lalaki o babae? We see kamatayan with a carrot, with a sight, no? With a big sight. Or we don't usually in our comics we don't usually see the face of kamatayan because it's there's usually a very long dress, long gown, and hooded, well hooded. There's a hood which doesn't permit us to see the face whether or the body of whether it's a man or a woman. So si kamatayan ba ay babae o lalaki? Cannot decide. We have to think about that. No? So languages are central to our experience of being human. And the language you speak really determines or shapes, at the very least influences the way you think, the way you see the world, the way we live our lives. So let's look at the way our languages shape us. Filipinos are really very really highly relational. You know, Filipinos like to be close to people, so close to people. We like our friends to be friends for life, BFF, no? So that when a group becomes bigger, when the group becomes bigger and the relationships are no longer close, the Filipino will tend to form another group so that there will be again another kind of close relationship. That's why Filipino groups in the US, Filipino groups anywhere, tend to splinter in smaller and smaller groups until there is a Camarines society, there's a Camarines Sur society, Camarines Norte. This is because we like to experience people in the closest possible manner. And we are very good in interpersonal skills. That's why Filipinos love to communicate in so many ways. And the closer you are, the more you don't need to really speak. Because if you're so close to one another, you can use what is called high context language, which is the language of gestures, no? And expressions. Because the more close you are to a person, the more you will understand each other through gestures. You don't have to speak. And this is why Filipinos are very good in nonverbal communication, because we feel so close, we become so close to one another. And note, Dr. Robles Lapos says that, you know, Filipinos don't want to offend others. They don't want to state on in your face that they don't like you, that you have to live No, because this person is so busy. Stop talking. Stop chismis. Stop gossiping. Because I have to mind your own business because I'm so busy doing other things. Uh, so when you're so tired listening to a person, no, um, you don't usually do not have the courage to tell this person, please, I have to leave. No, can I can I leave now or can we talk another day? So what they do, you just frown a little bit and pretend not to listen anymore, or you look at your watch every almost every second. So if the other person is a Filipino, makakaramdam yon. The other person will get the cue. No?
Right.
If it's an American, American will never get the cue. You have to tell the American straight to his face that, oh, please, I have another appointment. Can we continue this conversation another day? The Filipino will not do that because we feel so connected and we don't want to impair that connection in any way. So you have to you have to communicate non-verbally. This comes from Dr. Lourdes Lapos, one of our former psychiatrists. If you like to understand the Filipino very well, don't listen to what the Filipino says. Listen to the feeling tone, read between the lines, because Filipinos communicate non-verbally most of the time. Be sensitive to non-verbal symbols, gestures, body language to really understand what the Filipinos are really trying to say. For example, somebody asks you, "Are you coming to my party? Pumunta ka ba sa party ko?" Oo. Oh, most likely that person will not go to your party. Or titignan ko, subukan ko, oh, that means no. Because Filipinos hardly say no. 90% of Filipinos do not say no. Even the Japanese do not say no. We will avoid saying no by, well, saying yes in a very, very cold way or quite unenthusiastic way. Oh, sige, punta ako. Or subukan ko, titignan ko, pipilitin ko. All of this mean no. But you know, the moment you say, the moment you say to the American, I'll try my best, that means you will go. That means say yes, I'll try my best. That means your best means you're going. Because what kind of a person are you if you are trying your best and you cannot come? That means you are not trying your best. So when you say I will try my best, that means a yes to the American, but to the Filipino it means maybe. So misunderstanding can happen. Your host, the host who invited you, the American host, can get very sore. You said you will try your best, but you didn't come. But I didn't say yes. But you said yes by saying you try your best.
If there was a Filipino in the group, the other Filipino would understand very clearly that
Yes,
that's
of course. Yes. But Americans will not understand that. So we can really break our relationship even from the very beginning because of language. So Filipinos are so highly relational. Uh, we don't want to hurt other people's feelings. So we say, makuha ka sa tingin. By my looks, you should understand what I am saying. That's why we have become so sensitive to the way people look at us. Tagalog alone has 88 words for looking. I cannot put all of them here. I have a list of all of them. But if you are really sensitive to how people think, how people feel, you have to look at the eyes. Because of all the parts of our body, the eyes are the most communicative. And Filipinos are so expressive, no? Why? Because we love to connect with people. The best way to connect with people is to be expressive, to really fully say what you feel, but not necessarily verbally. So the eyes are so expressive. And when you look at the eyes, you can really see what is in the mind of the person. And being highly relational, we have developed so many so many words for the way people look at us. And when we go to the first list, can you go back? Yeah, tingin is to look in general. But look at this. Dilat, masid, masdan, matyag, liyaw is to spy. Next slide, please. We have to see this. We have to see it because most people are not aware that we have so rich in this. Aninag, sito at transparent as translucent medium. Aninaw, sito e haze. Tanghod, tanga, to mga suliling, matahin. Wow. Next slide, please. Look at how rich we are when we look at it. Silay, when you are unmarried.
Lahat ito Filipino words, Prof. Filipino
These
words
These
lahat.
are, these are all Tagalog.
Tagalog.
Yes.
Wow.
I have talked to my friends speaking Visayan, Ilocano. There are as many in their own languages. That's why I'm interested in asking them to write down all those words because Filipinos are really quite expressive. No? This is only Tagalog.
Impressive.
Silay, titig, irap with annoyance, lisik. Nilisik ang mga mata. Sparkling of the eyes when one is extremely irritated or irritated. Look, as I said, the shorter the word, the closer you are to one another. And in English, there's no word for liing. The closest, in psychology, liing is called peripheral vision. Look out through the corner of your eyes. When you don't want the other person to notice that you are looking at her or looking at him, you look through the corner of your eyes. And this is called liing. When I notice somebody doing that to me, nililiing mo ako, ha? Bakit mo ako nililiing? Bakit mo nililiing? Bakit mo nililiing yung katabi mo? May gusto ka ba sa kanya? Liing is very, very wonderful word. Peripheral vision. You know, there are 88 words for tingin. I think there are only about 10 of these words that have translation in English because Englishmen are more individualistic. They're not so concerned about how other people look at them. No, they have their own. Each person would like to have his own independent world. Would like to be on his own, alone, or to have his private space. So every individual in Britain or the US, I suppose, is not so interested in how other people look at him or her. No, but we are so interested in how other people look at us. No, if you are in a mall, in a department store, look at how Filipinos will look at the mirror for a long time before they go about their way. We are so concerned about how we look. We are so concerned about how we look. When we are in the department store, wherever we tend to look at the mirror and comb the hair or look at our appearance and so on. That's why in Tagalog, there are at least 2 words for looking into the mirror. You can look at the next slide. Not yet later when we see it. Look, ilang, sulyap, dungsol, lingap, linga. Or most of these are still in use, but the others are, well, no longer used by the Filipinos. That's why you have to revive, because we can be very exact in what we mean by using these words. Not just tingin, no. It's too general. We are using very generic words now, but we have so specific words like this. Lingap, kasaglans. Next slide, please. You can look at some, baliling, the return of the head. Instead of just saying, tiningnan mo sa kaliwa mo, you say baliling. Lingon over one's shoulders, tungo, tingala, sipat, very interesting. Very, very good for architects when you look at the alignment or sharp levelness of something. You're looking at a row, checking alignment, sipat, no? Surveyors have to use it a lot. O sipatin mo nga yung acacia tree mo o yung mga sundalo yan, pantay-pantay. O sipatin mo nga yung adobe, yung hollow blocks na tinatayo natin, pantay-pantay na ba? Okay, looking at the levelness of something. Well, this is one of my, why some words are in red? Because they are my favorites. They are my personal choices. Sumik, I most often use this for my classes when my students are looking at me, but they are not listening. Nakasumik na naman kayo. Nakasumik kayo, hindi kayo nakikinig. You are not listening to me, nakasumik lang sila.
Progressive form, Prof, sumusumik.
Yeah, of course. Nakasumik. Nakasumik is a better word. Or nakasumik, or Sumik lang. So you can use many forms, many conjugations for this, but nakasumik is one of the one way that I use it. Nakasumik na naman kayo. Oh, laging sumik na lang ang ginagawa. Pantay, to look at one's own, and sige, we can look at the rest, no? So that you can see the precise meanings. Yeah, look, tanaw, tinatanaw, that's like tinatanaw. When you're viewing something from afar, that's tanaw, looking from a distance.
Such
And
a,
this is the exact meaning, the original meaning of tanghal. Looking from a distance, contemplating the beauty or grandeur of something. That's why this became the word for tanghalan, theater, the stage, no? Stage. Because when you look at the theater from afar, you're viewing the beauty of something, no? From where you are, seated afar, seated from quite a distance from the stage, tanghalan, no? That's where you do the tanghal, no? That's why this is an exact word, tanghal, looking for distance, contemplating the beauty or grandeur of something. And nood, again, is a specific word. You use nood only at something that brings you delight. So it's not really appropriate to use manood ka ng patayan, manood ng murder, manood ng
yeah.
trahedya. Let's say trahedya is only a movie, no? But
Nakasaksi.
nood really is look at something that brings delight. Manood ng sine, manood ng fashion show, manood ng beauty contest, manood ng, yeah, this is nood.
Manood ng fireworks.
Yes, manood ng fireworks. Manood ng pag-deliver ni Sheila ng kanyang morning greetings. That's nood. Tinghad. If you lack height, tinghad. You strain your neck in order to see an object that's on the level of your eyes. Mulagat, stare. Silip, peep. Yeah, there's an English equivalent. Peep. Yes, here. Siglap, superficial attention. Siglaw, involuntary passing notice. Imagine how precise. At mga ordanga look born of awe or dread. Lisaw, disquieting look because of anger. How do you express that disquieting look because of anger? Lilap, another word that is quite interesting. Peculiar flashing of the eyes of drunks. The eyes of drunks.
How is it used in a sentence, Prof?
Napansin ko ang kanyang lilap. Ang dami na siyang nainom. Lilap ka na ng lilap, ha? O yan, maraming way. There are many ways. Sa kalililap niya, nahalata siya na maraming nainom. Sa kalililap. Tunganga, wow, open-mouthed curiosity or indifference. Nakatunganga kayo yan, magsasabahan mga kayo. Ginagawa niya, tunganga na lang ginagawa niya, magtrabaho muna kayo.
So definitely negative yan.
Negative, medyo. Pwede naman out of innocence, nakatunga kayo, masyado kayo natuwa sa nakikita niyo, tunga.
Sarcasm.
Can be out of innocence or something like awe, no? In awe of something, natunga kayo.
Nakatunganga.
Pwede rin. But mostly it's negative. Baling, look from one side to another. Sulinding, glance obliquely. This is what I was saying earlier. We have two words. We are so conscious of how we look, how we appear to others, but we always like to look into a mirror. That's why we have two words for looking into a mirror. I don't know if there's a single word in English for looking into a mirror. Do you know a single word for looking into a mirror in English? I don't know any right now.
Just look at yourself
As
there.
I said, individualistic people are not so concerned about how other people look at them. They would rather assert themselves rather than worry about how other people look at them. They would rather assert themselves. Tayo naman, anong tingin mo? What do you think? Well, typical German, this is how I think, this is what I like you to do.
Yeah.
This is what we can do, something like that, no? Tayo kasi we like to harmonize with people. Alibay, following a moving object with one's eyes. Banal. Have a glimmer of something. Mulat. Well, Amelia Bonifacio formed a theater group, Teatrong Mulat. Teatrong Mulat, open-eyed. And well, I did not put everything. These are only 65 in all, because it will be too long if I put all the 88, but I have more. This is just as a sample, 65 out of the 88 terms for looking.
Grabe, and all Tagalog. All Tagalog.
They're all Tagalog. That's why I challenge Visayan speakers, Kapampangan speakers, please make a counterpart list, no? Your own list, because it will show how rich we are, or what kind of a people we are. Look, meaning how will the German or the American or the British, do you think that these other people will be interested in all of these terms, in all of these kind of relationships? Maybe not. No, the moment you learn our language, you'll be very aware of how you look at other people. Yeah, you will become a relational person if you use this language. And look at the next slide, especially. Look at yeah. That to summarize now, based on the number of terms for looking, we are at our best, a highly nurturing, caring, sharing people with a strong material orientation, and definitely not loners. We like to be in the company of other people. And because of our genius in interpersonal communication and nurturing, caring attitude, we really excel in the service professions or industry. We are among the best caregivers in the world. Yeah, our yaya, no, our top notch, our doctors, our managers, our tourism agents, and so on. We're very good in this. Nurses, especially. Do you know that 1/3 of all the nurses in Britain are Filipino? 1/3 of all the nurses. No? This is really something.
Amazed, but I can believe that. Yeah.
In the US, there are so many Filipino nurses too. In fact, I really have a heavy heart knowing that many of our nurses there were frontliners and many of them were victims of COVID. They became positive and some of them died because of that. No? Because they were the most exposed. We have to pay tribute to the sacrifices of our nurses all over the world during this time of the pandemic. There's another set of very Filipino terms here. I don't know of any verb formation in English that really refers to collectives, really refers to a whole, the action of a whole group, or involving group action. No? In our languages, there are many words that denote collective participation. When you use a word, you are referring to a group, not only an individual. And adjectives that signify equal sharing of qualities. No? When you compare two people, two things, two objects, you compare them using words that imply absolute equality. No? So marami tayong pandiwa or verbs na nagsasadaan lahat ng pagkilos o pang-uri ng magkatumbas na katangian. There are many examples.
Kaya yun.
Yes, can we look at these examples? Yeah, look at this. Verbs expressing mutual, reciprocal action and equal possession of similar qualities. I'll just quote the first in each group. Magsilabas. When you say magsilabas, it is addressed to everybody, all of you. Magsigising, magsitayo. Magsipaghanda. Okay, everybody in the dorm, magsipaghanda kayo. It's time to have breakfast, especially in the military or in the mess hall. Okay, only 10 minutes left for breakfast. Magsipaghanda kayo, you have to go to the field. Okay, magkaisa, magkasundo, magkasama. This is complete equality. Complete equality, magkakulay. When you say magkasing ganda, you're exactly the same in quality of beauty. Magkasim pangit, equally ugly. Magkasim. What I'm trying to say is that we have, this is one of the indispensable, non-negotiable, I think the word is non-negotiable. Equality is a non-negotiable value in Philippine culture. We are so, we will be so incensed, no? We may even experience rage or really flaming anger at officials who are so strict in making us follow rules, but they themselves don't follow rules. Because that's really a show of what? Arrogance, no? And Filipinos cannot tolerate that. The value of equality in our culture is a non-negotiable value. And why? Because every day languages embed, ingrain in us the value of equality. The moment you speak our languages, especially this, there are so many of these. You are referring to a group, all encouraged or commanded even to do the same thing or at the same time. Or comparing qualities where people are completely equal in those qualities. When you go to the next examples, there are so many. Karamay, look, when you say karamay, katuwang, katulong, you're equal. Katabi, one is not more katabi than the other. Pag magkaklase ka, you're equally magkaklase. Kalahi, kauri, kalaro, kasapi. Ka is a term of equality. That's why when you say ka Sheila, kaipe, ka is a term of respect for both man and woman. It is not sexist. That's why you have ka Roger, ka Celia. No? Ka is a term of respect because it means you are treating the other person as your comrade. Like something like your respect at the same time it's equal, kapatid, no? Kasintigas. Magsagutan, magsabunutan, magkalinawan nga tayo, nagkainisan sila, magsing-irog, wow. I don't know if there are equivalents in English of these collective verbs. No?
I'm reflecting na on that Prof.
Oo.
Lahat ng verbs, usually if you want the collective impression, dadagdagan lang ng let's.
Yes, oo.
Or yung walang ka, walang magka, it's usually fellow. So there's always the other person. Unless
yes.
ito sa wika natin, talagang you are one with the other, no? Hindi ka talaga,
yes, there's an assumption that we are all one.
Oh, there's one then.
There's an assumption that we are all one. Imagine that our minds are pounded each day, with these qualities, with this way of thinking. Because it is not only Tagalog. You find that in all the Philippine languages. Other Philippine languages.
We can even argue, Prof, that it is the language of leadership. Kasi yung mga namumuno na ganito yung pananalita, talagang they are the ones who are able to endear themselves to their followers.
That's why we were meeting with Dr. Mina Ramirez last night. She said that why are we using military terms in organizational work? Why do we use target date, deadline, strategy? Why not use more organic terms? Why shoot two birds with one stone? That's why she advises us to listen to farmers, to listen to fishermen, and listen to how they talk. They did not use military language. They use very organic languages.
Yeah.
And that's why our mindset will be very different if we talk to the folk. We talk to our people rather than talk to our Western educated leaders. Next slide, please.
Can be quite divisive, no, Bro?
Yes. Because when you use a language that is individualistic, you tend to divide people. While these are inclusive language. These are inclusive words. Huh? You can see it gets more and more and complicated. More look at the more complicated formations. Wow, how wonderful! When I was a student in UP, I always heard this word makibaka, makisama ka, makisangkot tayo. Huwag kang ano, parang parang walang pakialam. Makialam ka, makisangkot ka, lahat tayo epektado. Well, okay, wala kayo matulugan, makitulog ka naman, makitulog. Imagine makipag-away, makipag-agawan, makipagsagutan. Wow, becomes more and more complex, makipagkaibigan.
Talagang isang ano lang, ang katumbas sa English, let's lang, bro. Let's. Tapos yung...
Let us. It's not one word. And ito
let us fight.
Makipagkaibigan. There are two senses here. Makipagkaibigan. Makipagkaibigan ka. Do something to befriend people. Befriend, no?
Let's make friends with others.
Friends with others. Befriend other people. But you can say also makipagkaibigan. That's different. Makipagkaibigan. You make the other person fall in love with you. Let the others fall in love. Let us let us fall in love with one another. Parang makipagkaibigan. Let us fall in love with one another. So that's a different sense now. So you just change the accent. Makipagkaibigan.
Romantic love.
Makipagkaibigan becomes romantic love now. Makipagkaibigan. Makipagkaibigan changes the accent. Because our language is accent oriented. That's why the word B-A-G-A has four meanings. B-A-G-A has four meanings depending on the accent. Baga is glowing ember. Glowing embers. Baga is glowing embers. Baga is obsess. Obsess. Baga is obsess. Ano baga? In explanation. Exclamatory.
Ano yun, bro?
Ano baga ang gusto mo?
Okay.
And baga, lungs. Baga, lungs. A foreigner just reading the sentence will be confused. B-A-G-A, what does it mean? Baga, 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 baga. Accents. What does that mean? Why accents? Why do we love to have accents? Well, we love to dance. We're the people who love to dance, who love to express ourselves. That's why we emphasize accentuation. We're a dancing people. We are danceable. How do you say that? What is the adjective of people who love to dance?
Love to dance.
Anyway, it's important to note. Pakikiramay, pakikiramdam. You know, pakikiramay is empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy. Or compassion actually. It's compassion, pakikiramay. Nakikiramay po ako. Nakikiramay sa namatayan. Pakikiramay is sympathy, sorry. Pakikiramay is sympathy. No? Pakikiramdam is empathy. Yes. Pakikiapid, wow. That's well, major one of the sins, one of the 10 sins.
Thou shalt not.
Having a relationship other than your legal wife, legal husband, and pakikipagtulungan, haba na yan. This is even more involved. Pakikipag, meaning the word prefix pakikipag already involves something bigger. Pakikipag, some kind of a convention.
Yeah.
Pakikipag-ugnayan. Makipag-ugnayan can be just 2 or 3. Pakikipag-ugnayan. Right? It connotes a big group.
Community.
A bigger group. Pakikipagsulatan. Well, a longer period. pakikipag-suffer a longer term of adventure. Yes, I think the last one is after this. Yeah, pakikipagkasunduan. Okay. Pakikipagkasunduan already involves a large group. I will not use pakikipagkasunduan if I'm only talking with you. Ang pakikipagkasunduan natin, I will not be using pakikipagkasunduan if we're only two. But if we're involving around 20 or more people, pakikipagkasunduan namin, yes. The magnitude, the word pakiki involves, implies a magnitude. Pakialam, pakisuyo, pakibasa, pakibagayan. Kainta. Kainta cannot be translated in English, even if you use modifiers, qualifiers. Kainta means only the two of you. That's a Tagalog word for let's eat, but only the two of you are talking to the other person, like halika, no. Like mahal kita, you're only two. Mahal kita. That is, there are two of you talking to one another. You cannot say mahal kita to a group. Mahal ko kayo, mahal ko kayo. Mahal kita is only to another person, mahal kita. So the kainta means there are only two of you. So I don't think it can be translated in English, no? How do you say that? How do you say that in English? Let's eat, just the two of us. Just the two of us, let's eat. Impossible, no?
You me it.
Well, it's awkward. Huh? How do you translate that in English? Let's eat, the two of us, let's eat.
Oo, hindi.
The two of us, let's eat.
Ang hirap i-qualify.
Something. Huh? How do you say that in English?
Wala, let's eat lang, bro. Let's eat.
Wala, you don't need to. You don't need to.
Oo, wala talaga.
You say, may I invite you to eat. That's all. May I invite you to eat.
You like to eat ang haba naman.
It's the same problem. It's the same problem with ikailang. Ikailang presidente na si Duterte. Ikailang presidente. That's impossible to translate into English.
Mm-mm.
So this is what I was saying. The moment you speak a language, your mind thinks along a particular category of relationships. You pay attention to another category of reality. It's not just for information. It's a philosophy. It's a value system. That's why languages are not interchangeable. Those people who say that English and Tagalog are, if you don't know, it's okay if you don't know Tagalog. Anyway, you can use English, or it's okay if you don't know English because you can speak it Tagalog. That's not correct.
Or even Taglish, Prof, di ba?
Yes. Even Taglish has its own connotations. Especially you say geologs, jeprox.
Oo.
Or look, when some of my students in the past told me that, sir, karirinig niyo na yan. Because they said that I was very interested in collecting something, collecting ball pens. Sabi sa akin, sir, karirinig niyo na yan. What is that? That was my first time to hear karirinig niyo na yan. So, become parang that message was become a really professional ball pen collector, parang ganon. Become a professional ball pen collector. But when I first heard that, what does that mean? Sir, karirinig niyo na yan. And that could not be said in Tagalog, in pure Tagalog, that could not be said in English also. It's a different language altogether. No? Taglish na yan. So we're creating another dialect of Tagalog, which is called Taglish. It's another dialect.
However, now, Prof, hindi pa siya masyadong rich in terms of vocabulary or advanced in terms of grammar. Kaya siguro ang isang magandang mapaalala ng mga magulang sa mga anak nila, give integrity to language.
Yes, of course.
Kasi English is the easy way out eh.
Ang nangyayari kasi if they can speak straight English, they use Taglish. If they can speak straight Tagalog, they use Taglish or Engalong, which is quite wrong because according to Chomsky, a very good linguist, you can easily learn or you can easily learn other languages. If you want, you are able to embed in your mental DNA the linguistic code. There's
Yes.
a linguistic code, uh, a certain pattern, a certain way of putting together, organizing things that we call language. The moment you are able to learn one language very well, you now have the linguistic key, the linguistic code, and it will be easier for you to learn other languages.
Natatandaan ko tawag dyan, Prof. ni Chomsky, Universal Grammar, UG.
Oh yeah, there's a universal grammar, and the moment you are able to put that into your inner mind, no, you have the key to all the other languages. Other languages will be much easier. That's why it's very important for people not to baby talk their babies.
Yes.
Baby talk is really bad for linguistic development. You have to talk in your you have to use adult language to the baby because you're impeding, you're impeding the pace of the baby learning the language when you use baby talk. You are not hastening the learning of the language.
Yeah. And of course,
Bumabagal.
yung consideration then that while before puberty, kids can learn several languages very easily.
Yes.
But there's
As-
also the reality of linguistic intelligence.
uh, uh, it's really ideal for a person to have at least four languages because if the person will have four intelligences, four adequations, or four organs of perception, um, the ripest period for a child to learn language is from day 1 to 7 years old. That's the time that the person learns languages most quickly. We have to take advantage of that phase because after that it will be quite difficult for the person to learn a new language. And we have to learn, we have to make the child listen to the languages correctly spoken. And never mind the writing. The writing part can come later. What's important is, well, because how did we learn languages? Not through writing. We learned it because we heard our parents, we heard our people, our friends, people around us speak those languages.
Yeah. As we encourage the viewers, Prof, to continue learning more languages and to
Uh,
enrich
yeah,
their language
yeah,
skills.
I have two things to say about this. Many parents think that their children are not good in English or are neither good in English nor Filipino simply because they blame the school system for teaching many languages. That's not the reason. The children will not be confused even if you speak to them in four languages when they're young. The reason why our kids do not learn languages, do not learn English or even Tagalog very well, is because they're not taught very well. They're not taught very well. Their method for teaching them is not enough, and they're not taught long enough. Because do you know that in the US, their mother language is taught continuously until grade 12. Taught continuously until grade 12. Here, we stop teaching the mother language at no, uh, uh, at grade 4. Until we teach the mother language only until grade 3. So how can we master the mother language? Let's say we are Blaan or Tiboli or Ilocano. How can you master Ilocano when you now shift at grade 4 when you shift to Filipino and after that you shift to English? So your learning of languages will all be half baked. It takes some time to learn languages because I took in college 27 units of English, 24 units of English and 27 units of Spanish, and these are not enough.
Mhm.
These are not enough. It's continuous learning. It's that languages require lifelong learning. You know?
I remember all throughout my elementary days and high school years, Prof, I had Araling Panlipunan, Filipino, but still that's not enough to deepen my my understanding and even appreciation of the language.
Oo.
Kaya kong managalog ng dire-diretso, nakapagsulat ako ng tula, gamit ang sarili nating wika. But as you showed me these words, sabi ko, naku po, ang dami ko pala hindi alam.
Marami talaga. Even myself, no, I really have to read a lot of novels in Tagalog before I can master some of the words. It's a really continuous learning because languages are very complicated. Tagalog is one of the most complicated. It's not an easy language to learn, especially because of the conjugation. How many affixes are there in Tagalog, in Cebuano, in Ilocano? Our languages contain, at the very least, 800 affixes. 800. How many times can you conjugate eat to eat in English? In English, you say, I am eating, I ate, I have eaten, I eat.
She is.
For any other conjugation?
Yeah. Present, past.
In Philippine languages, kain, nakikain, napakain, nagpakain, nagkainan. I can give you 100 conjugations within the hour, or even more than 100. You know, I conjugated tingin, although I did it in 2 days. I was able to conjugate tingin and came up with 225 conjugations just for tingin. Just for tingin. I can give you a copy. 225 conjugations just for tingin. Kain, look at kain. I'll try to conjugate kain.
220 conjugations?
Yes, just think for the word tingin. Titingin-tingin, napatingin, nagkatinginan, pakitinginan, pinagtinginan, katitingin, ang ganyan, no? Ang dami niyan. Yung ikain. Look, I cannot go to a party. Please do the eating for me. Ikain mo na lang ako. Ikain mo na lang ako.
It looks so awkward if you translate that to English.
Because we are a highly relational people. What does when you have many conjugations, it means that we relate to people in so many different ways. The more conjugations we have, the more we relate to people in many different ways. For example, I cannot go to the party. Ikain mo lang ako. That's one kind of relationship. You do something for me. Halika, magkainan tayo. You do that together. And one other example. This is one more example why we are a harmonious people. English does not contain involuntary verbs. English has no involuntary verbs. When let's say I accidentally kick you on the foot, no? Why did you kick me? No, I did not kick you. You kicked me. No, I did not. You kicked me. You can get into a fight over that. The other things that you kicked him or her. No, I did not kick you. But in Tagalog, bakit mo ako sinipa? Hindi naman kita sinipa. Nasipa lang kita. Nasipa. Involuntary. Hindi kayo makikipag-away. Bakit mo ako sinipa? Sinipa mo ako, di ba? Hindi kita sinipa. Nasipa lang kita. Wala. Tapos na away. That one is already a sign of a peaceful attitude towards life. We inserted that to make sure that there is a way to peace, togetherness, and harmony. Imagine translating it to English. Why did you kick the ball? No, it simply got kicked by me. Why did you kick the ball? No, I did not kick it. It just got kicked by me. Or you accidentally kicked it. That's how you say it in English. I accidentally kicked it. Maybe it's okay for English, but when you say, bakit ka lumuha? Hindi, naluha lang ako. How do you say that in English? Why did you shed a tear? No, I just accidentally shed a tear. That's already so awkward. Or it just made me cry, something like that. So you have to invent a phrase, no? Not say, naluha lang ako. Imagine how cumbersome to invent a phrase just to say, naluha lang ako. Bakit ka umiyak? Hindi, naiyak lang ako. It's very hard to say that in English. Why did you cry? So I just felt like crying. Okay naman, but quite long, naluha, compared to I felt like crying. It's a whole sentence.
It's questionable kung ano yung state of mind, no?
Oh, yes. So it's a state of mind, no? The moment you speak our language, you become a more harmonious people. You'll become more of a hiyang person. That's what how I talked about in the other session that we had. The hiyang, we love to harmonize with people, and we have many ways to promote that, to make that foster that.
One great thing about this discussion today, Prof, is that it makes us more appreciative of our mother tongue. Na ang kagandahan pala ng wika natin ay ang kakayahan nito na pagbuklurin, salita ba yun, Prof? Pagbuklurin tayo because not only do we become one with the other person, we become more in touch with ourselves.
Become more in touch with ourselves, and we get to look at the world in a more round, yung cooperative way, no? We are more ready to understand one another because of this kind of attitude. I have nothing against English. In fact, English was it was a minor. I minored in English, no.
And you're a very good speaker and writer.
Do you know that very very funny? I taught English for 2 years in Clarkfield. I was assigned by UP to teach English 1 and English 2 to soldiers, American soldiers, because they didn't know how to write using their own language. Their writings were awful. Spellings especially, they didn't know how to spell words.
I have experienced that, Prof. Pero I think that that makes you an even more credible English teacher if you have mastered Filipino.
Yes, exactly.
Because I noticed that Filipinos who are strong in using our mother tongue, napakagaling nila talaga.
That's very because they now have the linguistic code in their souls. The linguistic code. Once you master one language, you have the linguistic code, and you can easily understand other languages.
Whereas those are well versed only in English still struggle.
Monolingual. You know, if you are a monolingual, you tend to be intolerant of other cultures. The more languages you know, the more tolerant, the more culturally sensitive you are. That's why, as I said, I have nothing against English. You have to learn English as much as possible because it's a language of communication internationally. But you have to learn more languages to make you a more intelligent person, more culturally sensitive, and can promote harmony and cooperation all throughout the world. That's my message.
Napakaganda ng message ng mensahe mo, Prof. Talagang hirap talaga, no? Kasi our means of communication is the combination of Filipino, of English, and Filipino, talagang
other languages.
Pero ang napulot ko talaga dito, huwag kang mahihiya na gamitin ang sariling wika, pangatawanan mo. And if there's an opportunity for you to use any particular language, give it integrity.
Yes.
Lalo na pag tinuturuan mo yung mga bata.
I just like to say, naaawa ako, parang, I don't know, I cannot understand why there are some families which forbid their children to speak in Tagalog. Sabi nila, English lang.
It's so sad.
Parang, I don't know, they keep making the children so ignorant, no? Anyway, I just noticed that among some parents, parang pinagbabawalan nila, they are preventing their children from learning any Philippine language.
Well, on a positive note naman, Prof, maraming nagbabalik dito ng mga pinalaki ng magulang nila sa ibang bansa.
Yes. I know that too. Yes.
They are those who were raised in a household where the mother would keep talking to them in Filipino or their dialect, tapos yung father naman would talk in the foreign language. So ang gagaling makipag-usap.
Yes, especially the second generation Filipinos abroad. Second generation, they're the ones most interested in being Filipino. They're the ones most interested in learning their own languages. In second generation Filipinos. So it's already 7 o'clock.
Salamat ng marami, Prof. It's been
marami
discussion. I learned a lot. language and language teaching. These are my fields. But every time I listen to you, I'm enriched with more knowledge and wisdom on how to communicate better.
Thank you too for reviving my interest in many things and encouraging me to learn more, because I really am devoted. I'm a devotee of lifelong learning because there's so much to know.
I know, and you're always an inspiration, Prof.
Oh.
And those who are able to watch us, you can send your questions. Nakita ko kanina marami nag-hi among the TalkShop friends and clients. Next week, Prof, tuloy ba tayo? The art of persuasion.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
Next week.
How
Thank
to
you.
convince anyone and how to be credible when you present yourself. The
Okay.
secret behind
Very interesting. Really very interesting.
persuasion. Yeah.
Sige.
Sige. Have a good evening, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too. See you next week.
See you next week, Prof. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.